Hey guys, it's me, Sam Stein, managing editor at the Bulwark. I am here with Will Saletan, who is just, goes without saying. I don't even know what your title is, but you don't need one. Will's written a great piece for us called Just How Authoritarian Are Americans? The deck says, surveys show that Trump supporters don't just tolerate his autocratic tendencies, they positively like them. Before we get into it, as a reminder, subscribe to our YouTube page. We need subscribers. We love subscribers. You get great content in exchange. Will, let's answer the question of the headline. How authoritarian are Americans?
So it depends if you ask them explicitly.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at mostly the Trump electorate. But so Trump wins a majority of the vote. So then I'm looking at the Trump electorate saying, what will the Trump electorate support? The Trump electorate says they're for democracy. They say we're trying to save democracy, right? You ask them things like, is democracy the best form of government? Could you see yourself in a dictatorship? Do you care which one it is? There's some people who've done polls on this. Basically, there's only about a sixth of the Trump vote that is openly like, yeah, screw democracy. We'd be happy to live in a dictatorship. I say only like it's a great
only
thing.
Six.
Right? Okay, so like only 1/6 of like the majority coalition. But if you ask, when the pollsters ask like broader questions about how much do you care about democracy, would you mind this, would you mind that? It's about a third. A third of the Trump vote is like open to other or sympathetic to or prefers other forms of government. And then if you ask them about specific things that the president could do, the numbers get a lot worse.
It's interesting because you read these surveys, prior to the election, and it would always be like, are you worried about democracy? Do you want to protect democracy? And you would have like an equal number of Democrats and Republicans more or less saying yes. But I guess it's just they perceive different threats to democracy.
Yeah, well, the thing you have to remember about all these Trumpers is they think of themselves as saving democracy. Because remember, Trump told them that elections are being stolen, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So like one scenario of how America goes bad is we decide, oh, the hell with democracy, right? And clearly there's a lot of Trump voters who would do that. The other scenario is you have a demagogue who says, I represent democracy, right? Any election I don't win is undemocratic. They stole your votes, right? And that is happening in the sense that if you look at polls of Republicans, Sam, there are twice as many Republicans who trust Donald Trump to tell them whether any election was fair and legit, as trust the election officials themselves.
Well, that gets to my question: is what do they define as democracy, right? Like, do they actually think of, like you and I think democracy is fairly simple? People vote, the winner gets to hold power, right? Like, is that how they view it? I presume so, but is it possible that they just view it as Trump wins?
Let me throw a couple of numbers at you, okay?
Sure.
Percentage of Trump voters who said the only way Donald Trump is going to lose in November is if the election is rigged. The only way. 57%. Majority of the Trump vote says that. The only way. Percent who said that if he loses, they would not accept, this was before the election, they would not accept that Harris won fair and square and is the legitimate leader. 52%. Before the vote happened, they said that, right?
Yeah.
So a majority of the Trump vote is like democracy equals Trump wins. So now you see how January 6th happens because people are like, well, that wasn't a democratic election, so let's overthrow it.
And does that get to the justification of violence and rioting? Is that you can do these things in order to protect democracy? I mean, what do they think about that as a concept? Like, are there any ends to the justifying the means here?
Yeah, so if once you believe that the election was over, if you ask Trump voters about violence, it's similar to democracy, Sam. They'll say like, "Oh no, I don't believe in political violence." But then what about when people actually invaded the Capitol and I'm looking at poll questions where the word invasion was used. Was the January 6, 2021 invasion of the U.S. Capitol justified or unjustified? More Trump voters, 32% of Trump voters said it was justified. Only 25% said it was unjustified. So, and then the rest are just like, maybe, like we'll stand by, So you can see that like when Trump does something violent, again, remember Trump's excuse was, I didn't mean for these people to attack. But the poll question is, they did attack. And what do you think of the attack? And the Trump voters are like, yeah, we kind of like it.
Yeah. I wonder if Do you think that this will change at all now that Trump has won? I mean, maybe I'm being totally unrealistically hopeful about it, but are some of them going to have this epiphany that, oh wait, maybe it wasn't rigged, like Trump won. Maybe these people who we assumed, completely cheated in 2020 actually didn't, because wouldn't they have cheated in 2024?
Right. Wait, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong. Don't we have in Wisconsin where Eric Hovde, right? That they like the one Senate race that was close that they lost. They're like denying, aren't they denying?
Yes.
That?
So Hovde, the context here is Eric Hovde was in the lead. They counted more votes, as they do, predominantly from Milwaukee. Tammy Baldwin emerged ahead, and now Eric Hovde is looking at us being like, wait a second, something's not adding up here. But what he's neglecting to mention is that Donald Trump is still in the lead. And if these Democrats, these sinister Democratic forces were cheating,
right,
why would they not have cheated for Kamala Harris too?
Right.
I don't really follow. But anyway,
wait a second. Wait a second. And wasn't it, correct me if I'm wrong, because you probably remember this better than I do. Wasn't it true in 2020 that there were states where Trump lost, but the down ballot Republican won? And then, and then so it was the same. It was the same thing, but reversed. The only pattern was anytime a Republican lost, they claimed it was stolen, whether it was Trump or the down ballot. Yeah.
And they don't mention that Bob Casey is actually closer to Dave McCormick than Eric Hovde is to Tammy Baldwin, and there's no consistency here. My question, though, stands: is that do you think a portion of them will say, okay, like, Trump won, we can have some more faith that actually elections are legitimate? Or is that just not in the cards here?
I'm not a big believer in epiphanies. I bet you aren't either. like if the pattern is they contest it no matter what, then I feel like Trump could, let's suppose Trump is not going to be a dictator after he leaves. Let's suppose he actually leaves and JD Vance is the candidate or whatever.
Right.
I don't see any reason, maybe you can talk me out of it. When I look at the numbers, I don't see any reason why Republican voters, Trump voters, are going to believe any election in which they lose. They don't believe it when it's Trump who loses. They don't believe it when Trump wins, but the down ballot candidate loses.
I guess the only possibility is that, first of all, I don't think we're closing the book on, as we speak, Trump's meeting with House Republicans and joking about the idea that they might beg him to run again in 2028 because he's doing such a good job and maybe he will do it, and then wink, wink. I mean, I wouldn't completely rule out the idea that he pushes for it. But let's say he doesn't, and let's say JD Vance is the heir apparent or someone else. The only way this changes is by the fact that they are not as good at demagoguing this stuff as he is, right? They're not just shameless as saying, hey, if I lose, it's cheating, as Trump is. And they're just not quite on the scale of charlatanism.
Wait a second, though. We literally had, during this campaign, JD Vance literally refused. He said that Trump didn't lose in 2020. Like,
I'm saying my point is that they believe Trump, and Vance is, they're just like, they don't believe Vance as much, or Vance just can't do it as well as Trump can.
Look, I pray you're right. This now passes for the optimistic scenario.
Right.
That like only Trump has this magic power to like demagogue. The pessimistic view, and I'll just push it here, is part of it is like Trump's a dangerous, crazy jerk, but part of it is we're just seeing how gullible the Trump base is. I mean, he's deliberately looking for people who are gullible. He's cultivated those people. They're the people who buy the Trump Bibles and whatnot, and how completely pliable the Republican elite is. We're seeing all of that. And I just feel like this is a ready-made recipe for some other demagogue to come in and do the same thing.
Were we always, let's leave on this. Do you think there was always part of us as a society that was susceptible to authoritarianism, and just, it was that someone just had to come along and pick at it? Or were there some other issues that contributed to make this sort of a unique moment in history? Is it like the fact that we have this balkanized media ecosystem that like can allow this stuff to happen? What is it what are the ingredients you think that have gone into this?
Okay, well, so first of all, we can say it's definitely not unique. We've had slavery, we've had segregation, we had internment, within the past century. And people were, that's the model, actually. I think Trump's trying to use the same. So people have gone along with this stuff before. But to your question of what's new, I think when I look at these numbers, a lot of it is loss of trust. Like people who say they're open to dictatorship, it's because they don't believe we have a democracy. Donald Trump says we don't have a democracy. There's lots of Trump supporters who say that. So it's the loss of trust. I would say it's a cycle in which people like Trump and his followers deliberately sabotage democracy, make sure it doesn't work, and then say, therefore, my alternative is better. Yeah.
Well, it's a deeply depressing piece.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think it fits the notes of the time we're in, so that's fine. But it's something everyone should definitely is worth everyone's read. Will Saletan, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it. We'll be talking again, and thank you guys for tuning into this stuff. We really appreciate it. As always, a reminder: please subscribe to our YouTube feed. It really helps us, and please share with people who aren't necessarily fans of the Bulwark yet or don't know about us. We want to spread the gospel. Take care.